Hi everyone, I am so glad you're here with me today. We are going to go over a few different techniques of how to join squares together. Um, First off, if you are not subscribed to my channel, please do so. That would be so helpful to me if you subscribe. Also, if you could like this video, that would be wonderful. The first thing that we're going to do with joining our squares together is we are going to pick the color that you want to join your squares. So I'm going to show you with a contrasting color what it looks like when I put these squares together with these different techniques so that you can see which one you like the best. The first one I'm going to show you is with a slip stitch. So I'm going to show you what a slip stitch looks like. And how you're going to do that is you put your two squares together. You can do them back to back. I'm going to show you both ways. So back to back is what I'm going to show you first. So you're going to connect your squares with a slip knot. I have a slip knot on my hook. If you need any tips on how to do slip knots or slip stitches or basic stitches or anything like that, I have that linked here for you. So please go ahead and visit that if you need any beginner help. The first thing we're going to do is connect the first chains on our corners here. So with these grannies, I have two chains in the corner. I do have a granny stitch and granny square tutorial that I'm also going to link here for you because that is a helpful tool for you if you need to learn how to do granny squares. I also have some useful tips on there. So I'm going to join with my into that of those two chains that I have there. I'm going to join into that second one. So I have one and then two. I'm going to join on the same of the other side of that granny square, the next granny square. So I'm only working in the back loop only of these squares. You can see um, on this square we have the front loop and the back loop. I'm working in the back loop of both of them, and since they are back to back, they are the closest loops together. So I'm going to do a slip stitch, which is bringing my yarn back through and looping it, or going through that loop on my hook. I'm going to do that again in my front square, my back square of the back loop only, grabbing my yarn, bringing it through both squares, and through the loop on my hook. I'm going to do that all the way across. Front square, back square, doing the back loop only. If you wanted to go through both of these loops, you could also do that. I'm going to show you what that looks like. Both loops on this one, both loops on that one. Wrap my yarn around, bring through both, like that. And then I'm working in just the first chain of that corner. And that is a slip stitch join. So you can see how this looks. I'm not a super fan of this one because you can see that join there. If you were using the same color as this square, that seam would not be bad. You would just see a whole bunch of blue and a little bit of green, and then blue, and then that white would be blue if you use that color. Also, if you use this green, anything that is white would be green. So just showing you what that looks like. If both of these squares were the same color and you did a join that was the same color, you really wouldn't see it. And then this is what it looks like if you go through both loops. And again, if all of the squares are the same color and you use the same color to stitch them together, that is not a problem at all. It doesn't look bad if it is all the same color. So this is one way. I'm going to show you what it looks like doing this from the back side. So that would mean we're putting both front sides facing each other. And I'm still going to work in the back loop only, but you can see the front sides are facing. So the back loop is going to be the loop that is the farthest away from the center here. So this is the back loop, and this is the back loop. So I'm going to do the same technique, but going from the opposite side. So we have front facing or right sides together. Those are two right sides together, and I'm going to do the back loop only. So I'm going to go into that same chain that I did, right? And bring my slip stitch through. So remember, the back loop only are the outer loops now, not the closest ones. So they're on the outside of our squares. So I'm doing back loop only. And I'm going to show you what it looks like to do the front or both loops. Okay, so I'm going to do both loops of both squares. So both of the blue, both of the green. And that first chain of the corner. Okay, so that's what it looks like from the back. I'm going to open it up, see what it looks like from the front. Okay, so you can see the stitches in here, and I'm using a contrasting color, so just keep that in mind that if you wanted to use the same color of one of these squares, it would blend in a lot more. But I want you to see what the stitches look like. So if you like that little contrasting color peeking through, there are some blankets that I do with this. I like the nice crisp edges here from that front loop still being unworked. And then that little pop of color in the back. Like this would be really nice if you did like black squares and you did like a neon join in between. That would be really pretty. I also like this white in between these colors where it's just that little bit of color. It looks very intentional. And also this one with going through both loops of both squares. It's a very stitched look. And I don't think that this is bad. I think that this is a really neat contrasting color if you're purposely going for this look. I think it's great. It's totally preference, but that's what that one looks like. This is what it looks like from the back. This is the back loop only, and this is both loops. All right, let's move on to our next one. I have seen some people do single crochet, so I'm going to show you what that looks like too. I'm not as much of a fan of this just because I feel like it sticks up too far, but that is also an option for you to do depending on the type of look that you want. That is totally up to you. Sometimes this is a really good look for certain types of blankets. It's just whatever your preference is. So I'm going to go into that first chain and I'm going to do a single crochet into just the back loop only. And I do have these squares back sides facing together. So back sides facing together, and I am doing the back loop only, and now I'm going to switch to both loops. So both loops on the green, both loops on the blue. And into those first chains. All right, and this is what this one looks like. So the reason why I don't like it is because you see too much stitch here. And I just don't like that for the the join on the front. But let's join it on the back and see how that looks. See if you like that one. And I do have timestamps available in the description if you want to hop to a certain technique. Feel free to do that. So I have my slip knot. I'm going to do my two front sides together. And I'm going to join in that same corner chain and do my single crochet in the back loop only. Again, the back loops now, since I have my right sides together, I have my back loops on the outer sides of the squares. So back loop only with a single crochet and both loops of the blue, both loops of the green. And we're doing our single crochets across the rest of the square. And into the chain. All right, so that's what it looks like that way. See what the front looks like. So the front side looks a lot like the slip stitch that we did. The slip stitch is a lot faster. This is what the back looks like. So I'm just not crazy about that single crochet being so uh, prominent and so out there. It's not flat. It sticks up a lot. So I'm not a fan of that for that reason. But again, it is preference and it just depends on the look that you're going for. All right, now I'm going to show you a flat join. And with this one, you can do the front, the back loops only, or you could do both loops. I'll show you both ways on that one. I'm going to zoom in a little bit because this one is easier if you keep your piece flat on a surface, just because of the way that you're doing your stitches. It's a little bit easier if your squares stay flat. So I'm going to go into my first chain there on my corner. This is back loop only. So you can see again, the front loop is this front here and the back loop is right there. So back loop only of both of these squares. On this side, this is the front loop and then this is the back loop. So I have gone through on the top square. On the top square, I've gone through the chain space. On the bottom square, going through that first chain space, grabbing my yarn, pulling it through my bottom square and my top square and the loop on my hook. And when you are doing this join, make sure you're mindful of where the tip of your hook is directed, because that will make it easier for you to get through your stitches. And I'll show you what I mean. So I'm going to go into this next stitch, into the top square, into the bottom square. Going to grab my yarn, pull it through the bottom square. See how my hook is pointed towards that void in the space of that stitch, and I'm going to twist it around to go through that void. Because if I'm not doing that, I like this next stitch, the void is down here on the bottom, which I would turn my hook this direction and slide through this way. But if I don't do that, I cannot get through my stitch or my loop without catching that loop as well. So you just want to go towards the void of that space where there's a little bit of space in that loop. So that's what you're going to do. Just make sure that your hook is facing the right direction, and that'll make your life a lot easier, at least for stitching. All right, so went through my top square in the back loop only, my bottom square, back loop only, grab my yarn, pull it through the bottom square and the top square and through the loop on my hook. Again, back loop only, the top, bottom, and just keep going like that. All right, and then I am going to switch to doing both loops on the top square and the bottom square so you can see how that looks. Same technique, just going through both loops of all the square spaces there. And then the chain. Okay, so that is what this one looks like. You can see that going in just the back loop only frames it really nice with that front loop right there. I really love this join. This is my favorite one. This is my go-to. I always use this one. This one with the two going through both loops. You can see it's thicker there because you're going through all four of those loops there instead of just the two. You can see how the profile of this is very flat, and the profile of this one is raised up, and you can see that ridge there. So again, preference. This is what the back looks like. Pretty much the same. You can see that the profile is a little bit lower on this side than it is this side because you've got your two loops there and only your one loop on this one. Pull this out, and I'm going to show you another join. So it's very similar to the last one we did, but it has an extra step. So I'm going to go into this square, and I'm going to pull up my loop, and I'm going to go in through my square and through the loop on my hook. And then I'm going to go into my bottom square, into that chain space, grab my yarn, pull up a loop, and pull it right through the loop on my hook. So it's about the same thing, but it is a little bit more, a few more steps. So you're pulling through that stitch, going into that one. I'm still doing the back loop only of this first section. So grabbing my yarn, pulling it through the bottom square, pulling it through the loop on my hook, top square, through the square, and through the loop on my hook, bottom square, through the square, through the loop on my hook, and you're just rotating and you're just doing a slip stitch in each side of your square. Right, and then I'm going to switch to doing both loops of the top square and both loops of the bottom square. And then into my chain, into the other chain. Okay. So this is what this one looks like. You can see that little zigzag look. And this one looks almost the same, except you can see that this is framed by the front loop of this side. This side does not have that. The back side looks like this. Smaller zigzags here, larger zigzags here. That's what that one looks like. Now I'm going to show you a couple of the sewing techniques that you can use. So this is no hook. We're just going to use a piece of thread or piece of yarn and our yarn needle or tapestry needle. I prefer the metal ones with a little bit of a pointed tip on it, but that is just preference. The plastic ones work well as well. It just depends on what you like to use. I feel like for me, the metal ones seem to work better. When you are pulling your thread through, just make sure that you are leaving a good sized tail because you want to make sure that it doesn't accidentally slide through your squares as you're working, and also that you have something to weave in at the end of your project. So the first technique is going to be a whip stitch. So I'm going to go into that first chain on both of those. And I'm going to do the same thing, working back loop only here and both loops here, just so you can see the difference. So I'm going to pull that through, leaving a nice tail. And I'm going to go through that same way again, just to secure my yarn. So I'm going to go back through that same space that I just went through. I'm going to hold my tail, and then I'm just going to pull that tight. So then your tail won't move while you're working. So then I'm just going to go the same direction. So I'm going from the bottom to the top, and you're just pulling your yarn through. Don't grab your tail on the way through. And it's just whipping over like this. And for this, it really doesn't matter if you are working from the front or the back of the squares. Like if you have your front sides facing or your back sides facing, it's going to be the same look just because there's no stitches. It's just the yarn going through the squares. And now I'm going to work in both loops from the bottom square, both loops and the top square. And when I'm pulling it through, I'm just pulling it so it's snug. I'm not pulling it very hard. And then into the chain there. All right, and this is what this one looks like. So you can see anytime that we're working in the back loop only, it gives a nice frame on either side. And this one does not have that, but that's what that front looks like. And also the back looks the same. Okay, now I'm going to show you a little bit of a different stitch. To start with this one, I am going to go into both of those chain spaces there. So I'm going to go into one chain and out the next chain like that, leaving a nice long tail. I'm going to do that same thing, that same stitch there. Okay, so your tail is nice and secure. It's not going to go anywhere. All right, so over on this other side, on the top square, I'm going to do the same thing with going into this top stitch or this top chain and underneath and coming through the next stitch there. Okay. And then I'm going to cross over and go to the next, the bottom square. I'm going to go to the next stitch, into the next stitch, underneath, and go up through the next one. And the same, the top one, the next available stitch, going underneath that and coming up out of the next stitch. And then on the bottom square, the next stitch, going down and then coming up through the next one. And then on the top one, in the first, out the second. So you're going down and then up through that empty space there. Same for the bottom, down through one, up through, and you're really only working around the back loops because you're not working like through here or through here through the actual stitch. You're working in the back of the loop. So in the next stitch, we're going in the back loop, and then underneath, you're going through, up through. It's a little fuzzy there. And then you're grabbing both back loops. That's really what you're doing, is still working in the back loop only in just a different technique. So you can see back loop and grabbing the back loop of the next one. Back loop and back loop. Okay, the next one is the last stitch and the first chain. Okay, now this one, you're going to keep your tail tight over here, and you're just going to pull this thread, and that is going to tighten all the way up. Just make sure that it's not like super tight that it's bunching up your squares, but you have that one. And you really can't see it unless you pull your seams apart. That's a nice join too. That's sewing if you like to do that. That's what that one looks like. So the way that I'm going to do my join is I'm going to do my flat uh, slip stitch in back loops only. I'm going to do that, and I'm going to show you how we're going to join into the next squares. Because when you put a blanket together, what you want to do is work all of your horizontal stitches. And you don't want to have to end each one and cut your thread because that's a lot of ends to weave in. So if you can avoid doing that, you want to do that. And I'm going to show you how to do that next. So I'm going to take this apart and show you how to do the next, how to do the join that way. My two first two squares, and I did my flat single, I'm sorry, my flat slip stitch join in the back loop only. And you would do this with any of the other stitches that I showed you. It's going to be exactly the same concept where you are going to just continue your stitching from here to here like it's all connected. So just imagine that it's all connected. So I completed my last slip stitch into the first chain of both of those corners. So then I'm going to skip over here and go into the first chain of the top one and go into the first chain of this bottom one. Do my slip stitch like normal through the bottom, through the top, through the loop on the hook. So now all of these squares are connected. And I want to try and make sure that that one is a little bit snug, not too tight, because you still don't want to make your corners weird by getting them too tight together, but just make sure it's nice and secure and it's not loose in between those. So then you're going to go into your top square, into your bottom square, and just do that the rest of the way across. All right, so that is all of those squares together. If you had a big blanket that you were doing, you would just continue the same way, just linking the next two and the next two and the next two, and you would just do it that way. And then you would clip your yarn at the very end of your row, not at the end of each square, because that's just going to give you more ends and it's just way more tidy this way. So I have the last slip stitch. I'm going to chain one and pull that tight. And then if you have your next row, you would put your next squares here and here and just match them up. And then you would do all of your horizontal joining this way. So you would have all of your joins together. all of your horizontal rows together, and then these are all still unattached. So then when you get all of your horizontal done, then you're going to turn and you're going to do the exact same thing all the way across. I'm going to show you how to do that too, just because we are going up over that join that we just did. So I'm going to join this and I'll meet you when we're going to cross over that one. All right, so I am here. The yarn is traveling behind my squares because that's just where it ends up landing when you're doing your slip stitches this way. So I am just leaving that back there, and then you don't have any weird things popping through and stuff like that. You'll know what I'm talking about if you're stitching and your yarn gets pulled up here and then you don't know where it's going. But just keep in mind that it's traveling in the back, and that's the easiest place to go with it. So I have joined up to the point where I have gone into my first chain there, and then my second chain is connected by these other slip stitches. So what I'm going to do is just cross right over. So I did my last two on this side. I'm going to just cross right over and do my next available chains on this side. See, going right over this. That is the chain that's already worked into right there. I'm going into this next available chain there. And then I'm going right into the same on the other side, the first available chain on that corner. My yarn around, pull it through the bottom, pull it through the top, pull it through the loop on my hook. And I'm going to do the rest of this side the same way, just working in the back loop only. And just to give you a look at that, it's just it crosses over really nicely. It's nice and flat, and it looks really nice and tidy. So then that would be where you have all of your first connects are all your horizontal. You do every single row together, so you'd have a really big blanket all put together, except you'd had those spaces in between these horizontal joins, and then you're going to rotate it and then do all of what would have been your vertical lines, where, those are your vertical lines that were undone. When you twist it like this, it's going to become your other horizontal line. So you're just working right to left in this, so it's easier to do that than up and down. So that is why we do it that way. So let me complete this and we'll take a look at it. All right, I'm doing my chain one at the end there, clipping my yarn, tightening that up, and that is how you're joining your squares with a flat join slip stitch. And just keep in mind that every way that you would join it, any of the other techniques that I shared with you would be joined the same way. So you do all of your horizontal rows and then you would do your vertical rows. So that is how you would join them together. I hope this was a big help to you. I hope that you enjoyed this video. Please consider subscribing. I would love to have you join me. And I hope that you have a wonderful day, and I will talk to you soon.